Hey everyone, so today we're going over the man himself, Balt. So, I know a lot of people in Global have been a little disappointed in Balt. He's been on the SS tier of the Japanese lists for the longest time, and Global never really, a lot of people in Global could never really understand why. Part of the reason is they withheld his master ability for so long, he kind of lost his window of power in Global, but the good news is his time is coming, and it'll be coming soon because Balt is one of the earlier Kaigans. So let's take a look at Balt. We'll start with his Kaigan and 5 into his Gate 1 like always. And Balt wants 5 into his Gate 2, which will give him an additional 20% physical attack on his Feint passive. And you can either go with 4 or 5 into Gate 3. The reason you go 4 into Gate 3, regardless, is because Balt is an evade unit, and you get 3 evade for each step you go in this gate. You don't have to max this gate if you don't want to, but maxing the gate isn't necessarily a bad idea, because his Kaigan leader skill is 30% HP, 30% wind, and 5% evade. This is a very balanced leader skill, and will allow magic units like Uzuma or Neferti to run in the same team as him and benefit from extra damage. So let's start by taking a look at his gear now. I've been over the Balt Nenso several times, so I'm just going to make this quick and dirty. He's getting speed from the base stats and the desert group, and he's getting 49 attack and 81 dex right now from the Carla and Balt group, as well as the buff and the attack. I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over this because I already have. He is going to use his own set of weapons, and much like the Zahar sword, Balt has his own farmable twin blades. They give him 15 max joules, 35 attack, 35 dex, and 5 speed. And the weapon ability down there is going to give him 10 single target damage, just for just having them. You know, all his single target attacks will get a plus 10 modifier on it. It's similar to the single target modifier on the Envy Nenso. He doesn't use any other twin blades. It's always his own. And I mean, let's face it. These are some nice looking twin blades here. He's like holding 2 axe heads or something. For armor, I personally choose the Aswad VCR, and there's a couple reasons I choose this. Although regen armor works just as good if you don't have the Aswad VCR, or even the Nenso for that matter, because it took me months just to get the Nenso for this. It has 600 HP, 40 defense, and 7 evade. And this is a great way to get evade onto Balt to stack evade even higher, because he is an evade meme unit. There is also a small charge up on the weapon ability for this. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. It's like 50 or 50, 60 or 70%. It's nothing huge. It's something, but it's nothing like to write home about. It can help it when it, you know, if you got nothing better, but it's not like it's gonna like help you one-shot a boss over other units. So for the last piece of equip here, I actually have another VCR on right now, and this is the Strie VCR. And this actually comes from a 3-star Nenso, and it has 30 max joules, 7 speed, and 1 jump. And I can't even remember what that master ability is right now, so let's just take a moment here and look it up. If I remember correctly, it's some sort of resistance of... Where is it? Here it is. So the master ability is, for the first 3 turns, is you get 30 to all status resist. So I guess that's pretty good. It's, once again, nothing like stupendous or anything. It's just nice. Other options that he can use. You can opt for the crit pendant, and I don't know what this is called in global, but it has 50 dex, 10 speed, and 20 crit rate. And this will actually help him do a little more damage because he's got a lot of multi-hit skills, and the multi-hit skills can crit. So that could possibly up his damage with more crit, and it gives him a little extra speed, and it'll give him, I believe, slash and strike resistance for the first 3 turns of the fight, which might help him survive like some heavy-hitting slash units at the very beginning of a map. Saint Meteor is always a great option because it's going to give you more jewel gain and 10 speed, and it gives you a nice little heal that you can use in a pinch. If you don't have the Aswad Cloak and you're using regen armor, the Scarf is always a good option because it gives him that evade, and there actually aren't that many, there really aren't that many pieces of gear that have evade. And that's probably all for that. I mean, you don't have this yet, but the attack when I raid, I put this on Balt, and it's the attack on Titan Levi Cup, or Teacup. And it has 7 speed and 7 slash modifier and 5 slash modifier and 7 giant modifier. And that means he'll do extra damage to raid bosses that have the giant tag. And I only use this for him in raids, but it is a nice little thing that you can have if you ever get the attack on Titan raid. For his loadout, he's going to run his Twin Blade main with the Dark Cavalier sub, and he does have the Seal job enchantment on his Dark Cavalier, and that's going to be very important, as I'll show you later. He should be running his Evasion reactive, along with Feint, which is his upgraded Kaigan passive, and Overdrive for extra damage. So now that we've gone over all of that, let's hop into a map. So I'm sure some of you have heard about the upcoming collab in Japan, and I will go over that when the time comes, which should be on the 29th, so I think that means we get it on the 28th, because I hear Japan lives in the future because of time zones, or something like that. Let's not give him a leader skill. Alright. So, Balt's Job Plus has actually been upgraded compared to what it is in Global. So before we get started, let's take a look at the reason why we like running the sub, and why I actually choose to forego the regen armor on Balt. And the reason I do that is because Seal exists. He has a way to regen HP. When he's buffed up, he can sometimes suck almost 2,000 HP away from an enemy and restore it to himself, which when he's all like has all his HP buffs and stuff is probably going to be like a third to a fourth of his total health. So I just don't think he really needs the regen armor, and it's better suited on somebody else in the party. The other reason we like Seal is because we can suck all the jewels we want out of people. Alright, so now that Balt has a ton of jewels to work with, let's take a look at some of his attacks. So the first thing you're going to notice is that he's gotten an extra attack, as well as his attacks now have the wind element on them. And this is very important. In the Japanese meta, doubling up on elements is essential. That's the reason that a unit like Wrath or Bradley from the Fullmetal Alchemist collab just will never be a top tier unit. It's because he doesn't have any thunder skills in his kit, so he can't double down on his own element, despite having like 1100 physical attack. And as you can see, it actually does some pretty substantial damage. This is the Tensho Gust Strike, I believe it's called in Global. And this is doing 3.8k damage with no leader skill. He has absolutely no leader skill, and he's also getting that extra single target damage bonus off of the blades. And another thing to note, because the his twin blades are giving him a buff for the single target damage, it should stack with the Envy armament, if you were curious. The other change is he now has this AoE attack, which is big, and we all know that Bolt right now is sorely missing AoE, but there's also another catch to it. This AoE teleports. So Bolt now has a great way of getting around the map and doing damage, as well as just having an extra attack is always nice, and some AoE. The last skill attack in his main is the same, it remains unchanged, as well as the first one. So those are just some extra attacks you can use when you run out of your good attacks. These are your good attacks, don't kid yourself. These are the good ones. You also have access to the Retribution Blade on the sub for a little bit more AoE. It's not great AoE, but it is AoE. And as I've shown before in videos, you have access to this AoE. And Balt also has access to this attack. And what this attack does, and I do not actually remember where it's from, to be honest. I looked around and I couldn't find exactly where this attack came from. It's coming from probably his weapon, to be honest. But what it does is when you attack, Balt will get wind up, which I think lasts into his next turn. I did try looking that up and I just did not find it. So if when Tsubaki, who I know is going to watch this video and criticize me on it, like he always does, watches it, maybe he can tell me, because I didn't ask before I started. So yeah, that wind is going to last into his next turn, and dish out even more damage. Let's also take a moment to appreciate the Aswad charge up, and see how much damage that's going to yield. And now we're looking at 6.4k. So, like I said, this isn't going to be like some kind of like boss murderer, because in Japan, bosses normally have like 15 to 20,000 health, sometimes as much as 50,000 health. So this isn't going to be like some kind of like super high-end charge-up attack, but it is some extra damage, which is nice. It might help you take out like some like really annoying enemy on the map, if need be. And yeah, so that is Balt with no leader skill. So why don't we take a look at Balt with a leader skill and a full Desert Wind setup. And the reason I say a full Desert Wind setup is because, like I went over in my Desert Wind video, it's he does a lot of damage if you have the party set up right. Oops, didn't mean to start a Merc. Get Rahu. Here's the core Desert Wind right here. Looks good. So one thing that I like to do when I'm using my Desert Wind crew is I like to use Neferti as a forecaster to up everyone's HP. And it's rather convenient because I can then cast all my buffs right away. And if I had Yomi along, I could cast her buffs as well. And then by turn 2, Balt has all of his jewels. He has extra attack, extra damage modifier, extra everything. It's really, really nice. So as you can see, we're already doing 7k out of the gate. But I'm not happy with that. I want more. So let's go ahead and do a charge up real quick. And you can clock up Balt really easily with Rahu. Make him even faster than he already is. He's running 176 speed as it is already. And now he's clocked up. And he's hitting over 10,000 damage on Thunder enemies. So yeah, that's Balt. He is fast, he is dodgy, it's very hard to hit him, and he can output a ton of damage. And you gotta remember that this is also without, like, Yomi buffs. If I had Yomi buff up, I would have used the upwinds, because you can't stack a charge up with a passive buff, but he'd be doing even more damage than we're seeing right now. I could get Balt up to like 12 or 15k damage without crits or something like that if I try. He's a very good unit. Look at, he's now boasting 8.1k HP, so he's actually somewhat hard to kill. Figure 8,000 HP, and he's got like 40 or 50% evade, plus an additional 10% perfect evade that could just evade everything. He's hard to hit, he's hard to kill. Even when you actually do damage to him, he can heal like 3,000 of it back in a single turn. It's absolutely insane what this guy is capable of. Should you chase Balt? Yes, you should chase Balt. You should chase his Nenso. You should chase Desert Wind as a whole. Desert Wind was so powerful that it's probably directly responsible for the reason why fire is so overpowered right now. Because when Desert Wind was at its peak, fire just could not compete with it. Like, literally, wind would just overrun fire teams. Like, it was nothing. And Balt was one of the people at the center of it. So, yes, you should get Balt. You should max him out. You can go 554 or 555, depending on if you want to save sins or not. His leader skill is a perfectly acceptable leader skill. And yeah, that's most of what I had to say on Balt. The guy is a monster. And despite having one of the earlier Kaigans, like Zahar, Balt is still an extremely viable unit. He has not really fallen off. This is actually really important because Wind has just kind of run out of good Kaigans at this point. Most of the units in the game have been Kaiganed, so what we see right now is what we get until gates 4 and 5 come along. And Wind just does not have a ton of options right now. It kind of used its power allowance really early, and because of that, its Kaigans aren't as powerful as some of the newer Kaigans in, like, say, Fire. Like, Ramses is great, but he's no Daisy. You know, they do different things. Daisy is a charge up AoE nuker, while Ramses just sort of run it down and do a ton of damage. But they're both Pierce units, and honestly, Daisy probably just kills things a bit better than Ramsey does. Just putting it out there. And it is kind of stupid to compare things in different elements, but just in terms of just sheer power and rolls, generally speaking, other elements are stronger than Wind these days. So getting a very, very strong Wind unit should be your top priority because you're still going to have Wind maps. And, yeah, so that's Balt. As I'm sure many of you noticed, I am using his Denso skin. It's a very nice skin. And it comes with his Denso, just in case you were curious. And I probably mentioned it before, but I figured I'd mention it again. So thanks for watching, everyone, and as always, I hope to see you next time.